Very good morning to you all. And as promised in the previous lecture, today we talk about awk, right? Awk is a specialized language developed for text processing. This was developed by Aho, Weinberg, and Kernighan. So the initials of the name were taken as the name of the language. So A, W, and K, right? So awk is specially designed for text processing. It reads the file line by line, and the advantage of the awk is that what would take several lines of code for in other languages, awk is especially customized to do it in just one line. So what you have in this file is roll number of students in column 1, gender in column 2, student name in column 3, and marks obtained in English, maths, physics, and chemistry in the remaining columns. So I've already told you the awk reads the file line by line, and the entire line is read into a variable called $0. And then, of course, the line is broken into fields based on the default white space or separator you can define. So here you are. So as I said, each line is read into $0, and each line is broken into individual fields. The first column is denoted as $1. The second column is denoted as $2. The third column is denoted as $3, $4, $5, $6, and $7, right? If you want to access the last value in a line, you can say NF, right? And if you want to access the row numbers for a given line, and if you want to also see the row numbers, you can say NR. NR is the row number. If you say NR, you will get these values as well. So this is row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this is a small example of showing how the file is read and how the individual line is stored in a variable called $0, and fields in an individual line are basically stored in $1, 2, 3, 4 to $n, depending on the separator that you're using. And the default separator is a white space, but you can define it separator as comma or /t or whichever indication that you've used in your line as a separator. So let's now have a look at the syntax of awk. So there are two things that awk can do. One is it can just perform an action without any condition. So for example, here you say awk, and then you open these commas, and in curly brackets, you mention the action, close the curly bracket, close the comma, and then this is followed by the file name, and you press enter, and the action will be performed. For example, you can say awk print $0 marks.txt. So the name of the file is marks.txt, and you are simply printing the lines of the file. So important point, whatever action awk performs has to be included within curly brackets. So the second format in which awk works is where you say awk, and then of course you open your inverted commas, specify the condition first, and based on whether the condition is true or false, you now mention an action. Action will always be within curly brackets. Close the inverted comma, and again give the file name. So let's see an example for the syntax. So here is an example. Let's say you want to print all lines where the student has scored more than 80 marks in English. So the condition is $4 must be greater than 80. You say awk $4 greater than 80. This is your condition, which will be within the inverted commas, outside the curly brackets. Then in curly brackets, you write the action that you want to perform. So in this case, you want to print the entire line. So you say print $0. Then you close your curly brackets, close the comma, and then mention the marks.txt, the file name that you want to read. So these are two basic syntaxes. There is one more syntax of begin and end, which we'll talk about in the next lecture. So let's now see how awk can be used for text manipulation and also for scanning a file for specific requirements that you want as your final output. So I go into my Linux terminal and we start with awk. So here we are, and let me just clear out the screen first. Remember, the command for clearing out the screen is clear. And if you don't remember this, you can go back to my previous lecture on 25 common Linux commands, right? So you say clear and you're there, right? So now I wish to move 2 folders upwards and go into my MNT directory where my E drive is mounted. So therefore, the command for changing the directory is cd. And again, if you do not remember this, go back to my previous lecture on 25 common Linux commands and have a look. So I do cd ... Then I do cd ... one more time. If I say ls here, so here you have my MNT folder. So I go to MNT. And within MNT, I go to E drive. So I say cd E. So there are several commands that you can use to have a look at your file. You have cat, you have more, you have less, you have head, you have tail. And in case you have not gone through my previous lecture of common commands in Linux, I would recommend you go through that lecture so as to have a more familiarity with the Linux working environment. So the file that we are going to look at is marks.txt. I can say more, M-A-R-K-S, marks.txt, and you press enter. So this is the file we are looking at. You have roll number as your first column. You have the gender of the student as the second column, name of the student third column. Then in the fourth column, you have the marks obtained in English, then marks obtained in maths, physics, and chemistry. Right. So now this is the file we're going to work on. So let's say first we want to clear out, and if you want to use awk to have a look at every line, you can do that. So you say awk awk, and then again, you can open your apostrophe, and then you open a curly bracket, you say print, and you can say $0, which is representing the entire line, and you close your apostrophe again, and then you say the file name. So this is going to be marks.txt, right? And you press enter, and here is what you get, right? So this is your file again. And the same statement could have been given by not even specifying $0. For example, you could have simply said print and nothing else, right? Because by default, it would understand that the entire line has to be printed, so it will print the entire line again. So here you are, and you again get your entire lines, right? So now let's say you only want the first three columns, including the roll number, gender, and the name of the student to be printed. So in that case, you can say again here, and instead of print $0, you can specify the columns that you want to print. So if you remember, $0 is the entire line, and then the fields are separated as $1, $2, $3. So we say print $1, $2, $3. And you say marks.txt is your file name. That has to be mentioned, of course. And you press enter, and this will take you back here. So here you are. You have your roll number, you have your M, or you have F, that is your male, female, and then you have the name here, right? Now the problem is that this is two into each other. There is no separator here, so you need to use a separator. So for that, what you can do is you can write your command again. Let me clear this out so that we are on the top. So here was your original command, right? And now you introduce a tab space in between. So you say /t, and you close this, then $2, and then again /t, and then you close this, right? So remember, all commas have to have a closing inverted comma again, right? So here you are. You now say enter, and this should give you now tab separated values for each of the columns. So if you press enter here, now you are more sorted out. This is your roll number here, then this is your gender here, and then this is your names of students that you want to see. However, if you look closely into this file, you can see an MSc 31, roll number 31, the student is male, the name is coming only as Y, right? So the question is, why is this happening? So let's have a close look at the original file again. So let's say, because this is the last of the values, we can print the tail and the file name. So this is marks.txt, and you press enter, and here is the problem, right? So let's have a look here. So this is the problem. The name of the student is Y Jairaj, probably a South Indian. And because there is a space between the initials, this is getting caught as only one value, and the separator is actually separating it here, right? The separator can be defined in awk by using the command -f. So here is our original command, right? Awk, and then you have your apostrophes, and then you have your curly bracket. You say print $1, $2, $3, separated by tab space, and that is giving us largely what we want, except that in one student name, there is a problem because he's a South Indian, and you have a first initial, and then you have a space and the next name. So therefore, that name is not captured completely. So how do we now address this is the question, right? So what we can do is we can specifically define the separator. By default, the separator is white space, but we can define your separator as to whatever separator you want to use here. So in this case, if you use a separator as /t or tab space, then our problem will be solved. So for example, here, I still use the same command, but I'm going to define my separator here, and the separator in awk is defined outside the inverted commas, and the command is minus capital F, and then you can define your separators. So you can say /t, right? Here you are. So now we are still at the same thing. So we say awk, we define our field separator. The field separator is defined by the option of minus capital F, and then you can specify whatever separator you want within these double inverted commas, and then you start your actual action. So action, before action, you open your single commas, and then in curly brackets, you mention the action that you want, and to make it more legible, you have introduced /t in between the fields that you want to print. You are printing $1, $2, $3, and then you close your separator, and then you say marks.txt again, which is the name of the file from where you want to parse out data and print it on screen. So you say enter again, and here you are. So this time, if you see, you get Y Jairaj completely, right? So this is again important that you can define your separator. Once you define your separator, and this, you should know the general file structure to know which separator is best suited for your requirements, right? The default is white space, but you could have, a comma or a tab as your separator as well. Since we're talking, let's also look at the comma separated values. Let me clear this out. And I say more marks dot CSV, right? Here you are. So here is your file, and you can see this is your roll number, this is your gender, this is the name, this is your marks obtained in the 4 subjects mentioned, right? Which is English, Maths, Physics, and Chemistry. So if you were to again get the same fields in this file, if you notice I'm not typing, that is because I'm using the arrow keys to go back to the previous commands that I've already given, right? So here, if you see, in the earlier file, we had defined our separator as /t. Here you have to mention that its separator is comma, right? So once you mention this file should be easy to read and also be able to print in a more legible format. So once you say enter here, this is what you get again, right? So I made a mistake. If you see here, I'm still giving the file name as marks.txt. So it is reading the txt file. In txt file, there is no comma as a separator, so therefore it is printing the entire line. So let's redo this. So here you are. So here you are. Let me just mention marks.csv. CSV, right? And you press enter, and here is what you require. So now we have done the part where there is no condition. You're just printing a certain field from the file. Now let's get back to conditions, where you want to put up conditions and also see how this works out. Now, let's have a look at the marks file also. So let's say marks.txt, right? So here you are. Now let's say I want to only print the lines that have where the student has scored more than 80 marks in the first subject, that is English, right? So how do I do that? So now the condition is only if the student has greater than 80 marks in English do you print the line, otherwise you don't. So we say off, and then I use -f to define my separator. So -f, and we are into the marks.txt file. So I'll say the separator is the tab, right? So /t is my separator. Then I start my statement with the comma first or apostrophe, and then I say $4 greater than 80, right? And if this is true, then I've mentioned the action print $0, close the curly bracket, close the apostrophe, and I give them file name now. So this is going to be marks.txt, right? And you press enter. And here you are. Only the students who have got more than 80 marks in English are printed here, right? So let's have a look at the file again. And here you are. And you see in the second, which will be in the second column, which will be represented as $2 in awk, you have only two values, either males or females. So let's now say you only want to have lines where the student is a female. So we clear this out, right? And we go back here and we say awk, right? You open the awk statement by apostrophe. Then the first thing is you define a condition. So $2 is equal to, right? And you say $2 is equal to male, capital M. Remember, this is case sensitive. You're trying to print data only for the male students. Then you, if this is true, you open your curly brackets and you say print $0. And you close your curly bracket, you close your statement with this here, and then mark dot txt, right? Are we forgetting something here? Yes, we have not defined our field separator, so we'll do that again, and that will be outside these commas. Now let's execute this and see whether this works or not. So here you are. You have only the male students now coming up here, and all the male students are here now, right? Likewise, you could do the same for females. So if you see here, you can define again, $2 is equal to female. So double equal to is basically to test whether the value on the left-hand side is the same as what you're specifying on the right-hand side. So in $2, the value must be female or F for this to be printed, right? So therefore, here you are again, you say awk minus F, which is to define your field of separation. And the field of separation here is /T, and then you start with your actual condition first. So the condition is $2 must be equal to female. And then you mention what is the action to be taken if this condition is satisfied. So that is to be mentioned within the curly brackets. You say print $0, and then you close your bracket and you close your apostrophe. And then you say marks.txt, which is the file name here. Now, when you enter this here, this is what you get. So now all female students are being shown to you, right? So now let's say you also want to know the row number where these lines are. So if you remember from the PPT, I told you row number is represented by NR. And I use my arrow key to reprint the statement here. And here I'll say print NR, capitals. And again, I can give a separator /T, again, small letters, and $0. Right? So here is now what I'll also get is the row number is the original in the original file. So one more time, what I've done is you have used the same statement awk, then I define my separator minus F, and in the separator here is tab. Then I start with the statement with the opening of the apostrophe. So I say $2 equals to F, which is to say that you're only wanting the list of female students. But I also want along with that the row number. So within the curly brackets, I specify the action, and in the action I say print NR or the row number and also the full row after that, right? And then you close your curly brackets and your apostrophe, and you go to marks.txt, right? So here you are, and you say enter. And now if you see, you get your row number also. So this is row number 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is in the context of the original file, what is the row number where this data had appeared, right? You could do the same for the entire file. So you can say a simple statement, for example, here, let me clear this out. Again, you simply have to say print $0 and no conditions. So you can remove the conditions here, right? Here you are, and you can directly now print enter. This should give you the entire row along with the row number. So here you are, you have 32 rows here. The first one is the header, and then you have row numbers until the next 31 lines. You have the student, their names, and the marks obtained in each subject is shown here, right? So let's say you want to print the last field of your file for every line. So the command here is again simple. You say awk print $NF, right? marks.txt. So if you see the file name is wrongly spelled, it says awk fatal, cannot open file, mrks.txt for reading no such file or directory. So whenever there is no match to the file name, you will get such a message. So let me just correct that here. And then you press enter, and here you are. Right. So this is your last column, the chemistry subject, and the marks obtained in chemistry are shown here, right? Then let's say you want to access a specific rows from your file. So you can say, so let's say now using awk, you want to access only the rows from 2 to 5 and not the entire file. So you can use awk to do that. So here you are, you can use awk and then open the apostrophe. You say nr equals to 2, comma, nr equals to 5. So this is defining the rows from where you want the data to be printed. And then the action is to print the entire row, which is, so action is always within the double curly brackets. So you have your curly brackets here. Then you close your apostrophe here, and then the file name marks.txt. Let's press enter and see what comes here. So here you are. So let's also print the row number so that we are more clear that this is row number 2 to 5 that is getting printed. So we say print nr, and then we can use a separator here, which is the /t, right? So /t, and there you go, right? And you say $0 and marks.txt. So these are your rows from 2 to 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5 is what you get here, right? Now, let's say you want to print specifically only the row that that basically has data on unmol, for example, right? So you can do that as well. You can define your pattern that you want to match in a regular expression statement, and then couple it with awk, and that will allow you to print this awk. And then you open your comma here, and then of course you specify the pattern that you want to match within double slashes. So this is the starting slash, then I say ANMOL is what I want, then I say this here, and then I mention the action. The action is print $0. So you want to print the entire line here, right? And then you say close curly brackets, and then you give the file name, that is marks.txt, right? And you press enter, and here you are. This is the pattern that it's given. You're matching the line that has the name and mole. So this is basically given within the double slashes. And then of course the awk is going to scan through the file to find the line that matches this regular expression that I've given here. And then it will fetch out that line and print it for you on the terminal. And also you can write it onto a file. If you see here, you can directly write it onto a file. You can say the statement, and you could pipe your output to, instead of the terminal, to a file by again writing greater than sign and the file name. Let's say out22, right? And you press enter. Open it to the notepad. And here you are. This is your unmol again. So let's have a look at our file again, right? So let's say we want to cache the lines where the name NEHA or NEHA is mentioned, right? So I say awk, and then I start with the comma, and then I give the pattern here. In this case, we are matching NEHA, right? And then you give your action here. So I say print, and I'm printing NR, right, which is the row number. Then I'm also printing the row. So I'll give the separator first. So separator is /t, and then I say print $0, which is the row here. So $0, and you say close the curly brackets, then you close the apostrophe and the file name marks.txt here, and you press enter, and here you are. If you see, you have 4 times Neha comes. One time it is a subset of the entire name, so this is Neha, where Neha also matches, And then you have your, three other places where Neha comes. So I think we can stop here and we'll continue with this in the part 2 where we'll deal with more of the nitty-gritties of using auth, right? Thank you.